Chicago, Illinois, burned completely to the ground in 1871, and that devastating disaster paradoxically became the greatest urban planning opportunity in American history. Daniel Burnham created the legendary Plan of Chicago in 1909, establishing fundamental principles that still actively guide development decisions today. The entire lakefront belongs permanently to everyone, not wealthy developers, not exclusive luxury hotels, not private beach clubs demanding membership fees. You can walk 25 miles of continuous public shoreline without encountering a single locked gate or membership requirement anywhere. Compare that welcoming reality to Miami, where imposing condominium towers aggressively block every decent ocean view from ordinary people who cannot afford waterfront property. Chicago's logical street grid makes navigation incredibly simple for literally anyone who can perform basic counting. Every single block represents exactly 100 addresses, so finding any destination requires elementary arithmetic instead of desperate GPS prayers and frustrating wrong turns. You have almost certainly felt frustrated at confusing city street layouts before in your life. Chicago systematically eliminated that universal frustration through pure mathematical logic applied consistently everywhere. The city invested heavily in elevated rail transit infrastructure when other American cities were gleefully ripping out their functional streetcar networks for automobile lanes. Today, 1.6 million daily riders continuously validate that once controversial decision as genuinely brilliant long-term foresight. Portland, Oregon, drew a literal line around itself in 1973 and boldly declared that destructive urban sprawl stops right here permanently. That urban growth boundary became arguably the most controversial planning decision in modern American history. Real estate developers protested fiercely about housing prices spiraling completely out of control. Angry suburbanites complained bitterly about increasing density supposedly ruining their precious pastoral fantasies permanently. But Portland proved all the hysterical critics spectacularly wrong by actually building substantial housing inside the boundary instead of merely talking endlessly about theoretical affordability solutions. The city now boasts significantly more genuinely bikeable residential neighborhoods than any other American metropolitan area by multiple measurements. Their integrated transit system efficiently moves 300,000 daily riders throughout a metro population of approximately 2.5 million total residents. The celebrated Pearl District dramatically transformed abandoned industrial rail yards into thriving mixed-use neighborhoods without callously bulldozing existing communities or displacing longtime residents. You have definitely heard countless people mock Portland's quirky reputation online. That celebrated weirdness actually emerges organically from streets intentionally designed for actual humans, rather than automobiles traveling at dangerous speeds exclusively. San Francisco, California, crammed 870,000 residents into just 47 square miles and somehow made the whole arrangement actually function properly. The city adopted transit-first policies back in 1973 when visionary planners decided automobiles should not dominate the entire city. BART Regional Rail now moves 400,000 daily commuters efficiently throughout the Greater Bay Area. Muni buses and streetcars handle another 700,000 trips on top of that figure. The famous cable cars climbing impossibly steep hills are not merely tourist attractions for Instagram photos. They represent working transit infrastructure, conquering grades that conventional buses could never successfully navigate. San Francisco's distinct neighborhoods each maintain unique character because planners preserved them aggressively. The Embarcadero Freeway came down in 1991 after earthquake damage, and surrounding property values increased by 300% within a decade. That demolition proved something American cities still stubbornly refuse to believe. Removing urban highways actually improves the neighborhoods they strangled. Boston's Massachusetts. Streets make little to no logical sense because they follow 400-year-old cow paths through former pastures. That historic chaos accidentally created something modern planners simply cannot replicate through deliberate design, organic walkability that feels uniquely authentic. The Freedom Trail connects 16 significant historic sites through 2.5 continuous miles of engaging pedestrian experience. Boston invested $24 billion in the Big Dig project to bury an elevated highway destroying downtown character. That massive infrastructure undertaking reconnected the city center to its waterfront for the first time in 50 years. Remember walking through a city where every single building seemed to tell an interesting story? Boston still delivers that increasingly rare urban experience consistently. The T subway system, officially America's oldest rapid transit network, continues moving 600,000 daily riders through one of America's most compact metropolitan regions. Boston proves definitively that historic preservation and aggressive modernization can genuinely coexist productively. Charleston, South Carolina, essentially invented American historic preservation before anyone else even cared about protecting old buildings from demolition. The city established the nation's very first designated historic district way back in 1931, protecting irreplaceable architecture that short-sighted developers eagerly wanted to demolish for quick profit. Those narrow streets and densely packed blocks now generate more tourism revenue per capita than nearly any other American destination. Charleston's signature single-house design turns cleverly sideways to the street, maximizing crucial airflow while simultaneously creating intimate, private outdoor courtyard spaces. You have likely walked through some generic American suburb wondering why everything felt soulless and forgettable. Charleston demonstrates precisely what happens when cities design primarily for human comfort instead of automobile convenience exclusively. The city's successful model directly inspired Rosemary Beach and numerous other celebrated new urbanist developments attempting to recreate that walkable magic artificially. Savannah's Georgia founder James Oglethorpe designed something remarkable in 1733 that urban planners worldwide still study obsessively today. The city's 22 public squares create intimate neighborhood gathering centers distributed every few blocks throughout the historic core. Each square provides essential community space, welcome shade from brutal southern summers, and constant visual interest within walking distance of every resident. Savannah's grid incorporates these green squares as fundamental organizing elements rather than random afterthoughts squeezed between buildings. The design creates natural traffic calming because drivers must navigate around squares instead of speeding through residential neighborhoods. Think about your own neighborhood right now. Where exactly would neighbors naturally gather together outdoors? Savannah answered that question 300 years ago with elegant simplicity that modern suburban developments still desperately fail to replicate. Washington, D.C. Pierre L'Enfant designed Washington in 1791 specifically to impress important visitors and subtly intimidate foreign diplomats with American ambition. The dramatic diagonal avenues radiating outward from prominent traffic circles create stunning visual vistas terminating at significant monuments. That theatrical planning approach also delivered practical transportation benefits. Multiple alternative routes between destinations genuinely reduce citywide congestion. The National Mall provides 300 acres of magnificent public gathering space directly in the political heart of the nation. Washington's strict building height limit of 130 feet prevents skyscrapers from arrogantly overshadowing the Capitol Dome and historic monuments. That restriction simultaneously created consistent street walls and predictable density throughout downtown. Washington proves that symbolic civic planning and practical functional planning can powerfully reinforce each other when executed thoughtfully. Madison, Wisconsin, constructed an entire thriving city on a narrow isthmus squeezed between two scenic lakes, and that geographic constraint became its greatest lasting planning advantage. The limited buildable land naturally forced higher density and effectively prevented suburban sprawl before that terminology even existed. State Street connects the imposing state capitol to the University of Wisconsin campus through an entirely pedestrian-only commercial corridor stretching 1 full mile. That walkable street generates substantially more retail activity than suburban malls, occupying 3 times the physical footprint. Madison integrates its major research university directly into surrounding city fabric rather than isolating students behind institutional walls. The city's commitment to bicycle infrastructure created 75 continuous miles of paths connecting every neighborhood safely. Madison proves that challenging geographic constraints can inspire remarkably creative urban solutions when planners embrace limitations rather than fighting against nature. Which American city do you think has the best design, and what makes it special? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into urban planning, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.